Do you think that we have an Iga Swiatek will struggle era happening right now? Because we've talked about Ostapenko and Iga's issues with her, but this season it hasn't just been Ostapenko. And I kind of wrote this down in my notes here.
Mm.
Iga is in the midst of like an, for her standards, an almost slump. And I'm wondering where you guys kind of face this now very significant part of the season that we're moving into, the European clay court swing, where she's been so dominant for the past 4 or 5 years, and she doesn't have a title, let alone a final to her name since last year's Roland Garros. So does saying that just mean that she's in a slump, or do you kind of look at who she's lost to factor in where in the world Iga Swiatek is in her career as we speak?
I think about it in terms of part of the season, certainly. And I also think about it in terms of technique. I think one of the best things about tennis is each of these players, and this is true certainly more than it's ever been true on both tours, the players know that unless they keep their edge, unless they continually add, tools, unless they add variety, unless they're activating every part, unless they're addressing weaknesses, you're going to get lapped, especially when you've got Mira Andreevas and Alex Ielas. And just, there's no shortage of people coming in from the pipeline to challenge the status quo. So if you want to stay at the top of your game, you have to be improving, much less not, stagnating or moving backwards. And I think when I look at what Iga has done in terms of the off-court choices, I don't know that Wim Fissette is a particularly good matchup for her in terms of coach. I mean, he's very famously a nice guy. He's a positive guy. Obviously, he's worked with a ton of Grand Slam champions, not taking anything away from him. That said, I don't know that he's actually the loudest voice in her box. I think she's got a lot of folks around who are bringing various things. Maybe some of those things are ripe for some change. And you can read into however you'd like to. I also think, there are persistently pretty serious issues with her serve and her forehand. If she pays the price less on a slower clay court, she hasn't yet played this year on a slow clay court. She didn't play Charleston, which is a little faster. Stuttgart is indoors. It's faster. Madrid is at elevation. It's faster. When the clay slows down a little bit in the Rome and Paris part of this clay court season, it stands to reason that we'll get a better look at the Iga that is the most comfortable. But it does kind of make folks worried. I mean, Iga won the Sunshine Double a couple of years ago on hard. She has won the Australian Open in the past. She has, done quite well. Has she won the Australian Open in the past?
She won the U.S. Open.
She definitely won the U.S. Open. She made a good run, after the retirement of Ash Barty in Australia. This typically isn't her very, very best part of the year, but it's certainly not as bad as it has been this season so far. So for me, I'm a little bit concerned that she hasn't done much to improve, and I'm not sure the voices around her are helping her do that. I was hoping we'd see a little bit more assertiveness from Wim, just in terms of what Liza was talking about. The ticks, the kind of, I don't know if you want to call them gamesmanship.
The stuff that she carries to the court. It's a lot.
It comes with the court. And I think more than anything else, I don't personally like it because it reminds me of juniors, but I think more than anything else, it's an indication. It's kind of a tell to your opponent that you're anxious, that you're high strung. I don't know that it's the strength that maybe she thinks it is, or that it, to me, I think it's telegraphing anxiety. And I don't know, I don't know that she should or wants to continue playing that way, because I think she kind of needs to evolve a little bit. And so I'd love to see her do that. Not totally in panic mode yet until the slower clay courts are upon us, but unless she has a great Rome, I'm thinking maybe she doesn't defend at the French Open.
Which is hard to do. She's going for her 4th in a row.
Sure.
Yeah. Eliza,
she's been so far away the favorite in the last couple of years. Not even, other clay quarters, Coco Gauff or Alina Svitolina last year. Mukova, was not really in that match. I mean, Iga's so far ahead of everyone else on that Roland Garros Terre Battue. I don't know that this year, unless something drastically changes, she's got the edge.
I would agree with everything you said. I'd add the little piece of the context of the doping ban and how she has reflected on that negatively impacting her psyche and losing the world #1 spot. And I think anytime you become like obsessed with the ranking and the world number one kind of slot, and now putting that pressure on yourself of every tournament that goes by that you don't win, you're further and further away from regaining that. And by her having that number one spot, as you say, for a long period of time where she largely went unchallenged, and now that feels actually like a mountain to climb, and it's kind of slipping away from her, that she seems to have internalized that pressure, and it's reflecting in her tennis and just like her attitude towards problem solving and coming out of difficult situations. I think the post that she made on socials after the whole Indian Wells ball kid situation was also kind of revealing of how she's taking on a lot of the criticism that she sees online, that she feels like she can't kind of get the right balance between being like her kind of shy self and being a bit more emotional on the court. And there doesn't seem to kind of be like a happy medium for her when she's experiencing frustration or she is in a losing position, that she feels like she can kind of let that out and not be under the cosh of negativity online. I think she's paying a lot of attention to things that are probably quite a big distraction for her, and is sort of snowballing into this like negative aura that can make her feel like, yeah, crap, I haven't made a final since last year, and I haven't got a title to my name, and clay seems to be my best surface. And then all of these things are kind of adding up, and you start to think, okay, now clay all of a sudden has become so pressurized, when in the past it was the surface that she looked forward to the most and probably thought, like, I'm going to go into this crushing it. And we already saw last year in Madrid how close that was with Sabalenka in the final, which was one of the best matches of the year. And I'm sure those things get into her mind. She sees Ostapenko's in the draw. Like, there's a lot of kind of things that might get the wheels turning of like, can I do this again? And yeah, she just seems to be in a mentally quite a negative spot. And I would agree that I'm not sure Wim Fissette was quite the right like pick for her personality wise. And I'm also not sure of kind of, the relationship with the other members in her coaching box and like how healthy that seems to be. I know there's been like more and more kind of like underground grumbling with her relationship with the psychologist, and like, is that gone beyond professional to something more personal, and how does that impact her possibly or not at all? I don't know, but of course these are all speculations, but I think there's just a lot going on off court that seems to be filtering into her game.
The Iga Swiatek era is in jeopardy, I would say. It's in a state of flux. Sorry, Iga-nators, don't come and swarm the comments. Actually, you should.
Going to.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think.